Sham Sharadavo Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Praptasya Kalyana Gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Praptasya Kalyana Gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Mahaprabhu ki Tana Nritya Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Mahaprabhu ki Tana Nritya Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Shri Vigrahara Dhana Nityanana Shingaratanama Niramajanado Juktasya Bhaktamsya Niyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasado Satvana Triptan Hari Bhakta Sangha Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasado Satvana Triptan Hari Bhakta Kritva eva tripte Bhajata Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Bhajata Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Shiradikama Tavayara Para Madhurya Leela Gunarupanamna Shiradikama Madhurya Leela Gunarupanam Pratikshana Swa Dhanalupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Ne Kunjayono Ratikeli Siddhai Jajali Vir Juktir Apekshaniya Nekunjayo Tatrati daksha atibalabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam. Sacha dharitvena Shamasta shashrim Ruktastathava Vyataeva sadhavim. Kintu prabodja Priya eva tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvrindam. Yasya prasada Bhagavat prasada Yasya prasada Nagati kutapi Yasya prasada Bhagavat prasada Yasya prasada Nagati kutapi Dhyayam subham tasya Yasa trisandyam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam. Yasa trisandyam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam. Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam. Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Nama Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravane Pracharine Nirvishesa Shunyavadi Pachatya Desha Tadine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gora Bhakta Vrinda. Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gora Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Yaraya Namah Krishna Jadavaya Namah Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namah Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhattaraguna Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasaraguna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Haribo, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Shri Radha, Nila Madhava, Radhe Radhe. Jayo Jagannath, Jayo Baladeva, Jayo Subhadrama, Jayo Sudarshan Chakra. Jayo Sitaram, Sitaram. Jayo Sitaram, Jayo Sitaram, Jayo Sitaram, Jayo Lakshman Hanuman. Jayo Lakshmi Narasingha, Jayo Lakshmi Narasingha, Lakshmi Narasingha, Jayo Prahlad Maharaj. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo, Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura, Nitai Gaura Pramanande Haribo. Jai Vishnupada Paramahansa Prabhupada Acharya Suttara Saraswati Shimari Divine Grace. Abhayacharya Vina Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON Pratishta Bhiviti Samstapakacharya Vaishnav Siromani Patit Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patita Udhara ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Gunasar Goswami Prabhu ki. नामाचार्य शील हरिदास ठाकुर जी की जय। अनंत कुछ वैष्णवृंद की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। परम दयाल से नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय। जय प्रेम नाम संकीर्तन जनक प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम श्री सच्चिनंदन श्री गौरंग श्री चैतन्य महाप्रभु गौर हरि महावरनय अवतार की जय। गोलोकेर प्रमधान हरि नाम संकीर्तन जग की जय। जुग धर्म हरि कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय। प्रियात्मतांग ट्रांसडेंटल बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सेवा की जय। शिष्य राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपना राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय। श्री ब्रज भूमि वृंदावन मथुर धाम की जय। तेलोश शिष्य राधा नीलमाधव की जय। शिष्य मायापुर नवद्वीप एक चक्र धाम की जय। परम करुण शिष्य गौरनिताय की जय। श्री पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी बलदेव प्रभु श्रीमती सुभद्रा देवी सुदर्शन चक्र भगवान की जय। भक्ति सर्व विघ्न विनाशना करण शंकरे भगवान की जय। सीताराम लक्ष्मण भक्त हनुमान जी की जय। गंगा माई जमुना माई की जय। तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री मथुरा धारानी की जय। समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय। निताय गौरी प्रेमानंदे हरिभो। All glory to the assembly bodies. All glory to the assembly bodies. All glory to the assembly bodies. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gaurang. Hari Hari. Hare Krishna.
नमस्ते नरसिंहाय नमस्ते नरसिंहाय
Namaste Narasimhaya.
प्रहलाद लाद दायिने हिरण्यकाशी पूर्वसा श्रीलटंकान कालाए ये तो नरसिंहा पर तो नरसिंहा यतो यतो यामि ततो नरसिंहा बाहे नरसिंहा हृदय नरसिंहा नरसिंहमतिं शरणं प्रपदे तव कर कमल वरे नकाप अद्भुत श्रृंगार दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु कनुभृंगा केशवधीरता हरि रूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे तव कर कमल वरे नकाम अद्भुत अद्भुत श्रृंगार ललिता हिरण्यकशिपु केशवधीरता नरहरि रूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे Jaya Narsingha Dev, Jaya Narsingha Dev, Jaya Narsingha Dev, Jaya Narsingha Dev. Jaya Bhakta Prahlad, Jaya Bhakta Prahlad, Jaya Bhakta Prahlad, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj.
Jaya Bhakta Prahlad,
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Gurudev. बोल नरसिंह भगवान की जय, भक्त प्रहलाद की जय, प्रभुपाद महाराज की जय.
Shri Vrindayai Tulasirivai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnavati Prade Devi Satavatai Vrindayai Tulasirivai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki Jai. Did you want to sing? Tulsi? Haribo?
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Prayasi Namo Namaha
Tulasi Krishna Prayasi
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Prayasi Namo Namaha
Tulasi Krishna Prayasi Namo
Radha Krishna Seva Pabo Eya Bhilashi
Radha Krishna Seva Prabhu Jaya Vilashi
शरण लोय तारा वंचा पूरण होय
Tamara Sharanala Tarabanta Purana
कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन बासी
Kripa Kore Kara Kore Vrindavanavasi
मोराए अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियो वास
Morae Avila Vilas Kunde Diyava
नयने हरिबो सदा जुगल रूपरासी
Aminayane Vivosada Jugavarasi
এই নিবেদনা ধারো সাখির অনুগাতা করো
Eni Vedana Dana Sakirayano Pataka
सेवा अधिकारा दिए करो निज दासी
Sevayane Kara Diye Parane Jarasi
दीना कृष्ण दासे कोय ए जीना मोरा होय
Dina Krishna Daseka Eyena Mora
श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा जिना भासी
Sri Radha Govinda Preme Sadai Navasi
श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा जिना भासी
Sri Radha Govinda Preme Sadai Navasi
यानि कानि च पापानि भ्रमाहत्यधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
Jani Kani Sapapani Brahma Hatare Kanisa Tani Tani Panasanti Pradachina Pani Pani
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्माहत्यधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
Tani Kani Sapapani Brahma Tani Kanisa Tani Tani Panasanti Pradachina Pani Pani
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्माहत्यधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
Kani Sapapani Brahma Tani Kanisa Tani Tani Panasanti Pradachina Pani Pani
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani.
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani.
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi.
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi.
Nityai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nityai Gaura Hari Bol, Nityai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nityai Gaura Hari Bol. श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की जय.
Shri Vrindayai Tulasi Vai Vyai Ke Sava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradi Devi Satavatai Vrindayai Tulasi Vai Vyai Ke Sava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradi Devi Satavatai Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyai Ke Sava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradi Devi Satavatai Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Oh Tulsi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service which is Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you as wishes fulfilled, bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also give me a residence in pleasure grove to Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I dare you to make me a follower of happy themselves of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant Krishna praise. May I always swim in love with Shri Shri Radha and Govinda Shri Mati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Pustakam Ki Jai. Chitorapanam Mahajanam Bhavamada Nirvapanam Shri Akariva Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivamanam Adipadam Purnamrita Shradanam Sarvatmasnam Param Param Jayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nahamakari Inda Sarvashakti Sarvatmananta Marina Ara Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Kestakam ki jai. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it sprays the ray of the benediction of it is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govind. In these transcendental names you have invested with your transcendental energies. There is no even hard and fast rule for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself a lord and stroll in his street, one should be more tolerant than his tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I'm falling in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes will be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and will the hairs and my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I'm considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world and in your absence. I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if his hand handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he's always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Shri Shikastakam Ki Jai. Om Mahabharanaya. The attendant offenses in the matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that must be avoided, they are as follows. 1. Blaspheme devotees who dedicate their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. Consider names of demigods, the Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literatures and pursuance of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities offered in Vedas as fruitive activity, karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person by the glorious holy name. And 10. Do not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It also an offense in attentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnavas to praise the Lord. They are just like desired trees, they can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditions. So,
Bhagavatam Kantaraj Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Janma Yachayatam Vayaritarata Chatir Swadigya Swara. Tena Brahma Udaya Adikavaye Mojanti Jasuraya. Tejo Varam Ritan Jata Vinimayo Jatra Trisargam Rusya. Dhamna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyang Param Dhimahi.
O my Lord, Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva.
O my Lord Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva.
O all-pervading personality of God.
O all-pervading personality of Godhead.
From our respectful basis unto you.
Out from my respectful obeisances unto you.
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth.
And the primeval cause of all causes.
And the primeval cause of all causes.
Creation, sustenance, and destruction manifested universes.
Of the creation, sustenance, and destruction that manifested universe.
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations.
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations.
And he's independent because there's no other cause beyond him.
And he is independent because there's no other cause beyond him.
Is he only first imparted Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji?
It is she only who first imparted Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji.
The original living being.
The original living
By
being.
him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion.
By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed
As
into
one is
illusion.
bewildered by the illusory representations
As one is bewildered by the illusory representation
of water seen in fire or land seen on water.
of water seen the fire, land seen the water.
Only because of him do the material universes,
Only because of him do the material universe.
temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature,
Temporarily manifested by the reaction of the three modes of nature.
appear factual, although they are unreal.
Appear factual, already
I therefore
unreal.
meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna,
And meditate upon him, Lord Shri
who
Krishna,
is eternally existent in transcendental abode,
who is eternally existent to the transcendental abode,
which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world.
which is forever free from the illusory representation of material.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
Dharma pochita kaitavotra,
Dharma projita kaitavutta.
paramo nimatsaranam satam,
Paramo nirmashranam satam.
vedyam vastavam atra vastu,
Vedyam vastavam astra vastu.
shivedam tapatrayon muvanam,
Shivadam taputrayo maranam.
Shrimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite,
Shrimad Bhagavate Mahamuni
Kimba
Krite.
Parer Ishwaraha,
Kimba Paririshvaraha.
Sadyo Hridi Avuriditetra,
Sadhya Rudya Varudya Titra.
Krite Behi Sususa Bistakshana,
Kriti Shishu Shubhistatkana.
completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated.
Completely rejecting all religious activities from material motivated.
This Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth,
This Bhagavad Purana propounds the highest truth,
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart.
which is understandable by those devotees that are fully pure in heart.
The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
The highest truth, the reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
Such truth uproots the threefold mysteries.
Such a truth uproots the threefold
This
miseries.
beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in its maturity
This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by great sage Vyasadeva is
is
maturity.
sufficient in itself for God realization.
Is sufficient itself for God realization.
What is the need of any other scripture?
What is the need of the other scripture?
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
by this culture of
by
knowledge,
this culture of knowledge,
the Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
the Lord is established within his heart.
Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam,
Nigama kalpatoro galitam phalam.
sukhamukad amrita dravya samyutam,
Sukhamukadam Ridadravya Sangitam.
pivata Bhagavatam rasamalayam,
Pivata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam.
mohor ahoraska bhuvibhavaka.
Mura Horasika Bhuvivavaka.
O expert and thoughtful man, relish Srimad Bhagavatam.
O expert and thoughtful man, British
The mature fruit of the desired true Vedic literature
The mature fruit, the desired true Vedic literature.
is emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami.
It emanated from the lips of Sri Shukadev Goswami.
Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful.
Therefore, this fruit has become even more
Although its
tasteful.
nectarian juice was already relishable for
Although
all,
its nectarine juice was also relishable for all,
including liberated souls.
including liberated souls.
Shrivatam Swakata Krishna,
Shramvatam Swakata Krishna.
Punya Shravana Kirtana,
Punya Shravana Kirtana.
Hiryantak Stohi Bhadrani,
Hiridyantasto Hiyabhadrani.
Vidyanati Srihit Satam.
Vidunoti Surit
To hear
Satam.
about Krishna from Vedic literatures,
to hear about Krishna from very glorious,
or to hear from him directly through the
or
Bhagavad
to hear
Gita,
from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita.
is itself righteous
It
activity.
is self-righteous activity.
And for one who hears about Krishna,
And for who hears about Lord Krishna,
Lord Krishna is dwelling in everyone's heart.
Lord Krishna is dwelling within everyone's heart.
Acts as a best wishing friend,
Acts as the best wishing friend.
and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him.
And purifies the body, constantly engages in hearing of him.
Nastapresu abhadresu
Nasta Praisha Bhadreshu
nityam bhagavata sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Seva
bhagavati uttamasloke
Bhagavati Uttama
bhaktir
Shloke
bhavati naistikvi.
Bhaktir Bhavati Nastiki.
In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge.
In this way, devotee naturally develops in trance.
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavad
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
and from the devotees,
and from the devotees,
he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord.
becomes fixed in devotional service of the Lord.
Tadarajastumo bhava
Tadarajastamo Bhava
kamalobhadayaschaye cheta
Kamalobhadayascha
itaranavidam
Chaitaitarana
stifam sattve prasiddhiti.
Vidam Sattve Prasidati.
By development of devotional service,
By development of devotional service,
one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance,
one becomes free from the modes of passion of
and
ignorance,
thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
and thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
Evam prasana manaso
Evam Prasanal Manas
bhagavad bhakti yogataha
Bhagavat Bhakti Yoga
bhagavad tattva vijnana
Bhagavat Tattva Vijnana
mukta sangasya jayate.
Mukta Sangha Sajayate.
When these impurities are wiped away,
When these impurities are wiped
the
away,
candidate remains steady in his position of pure
the
goodness,
candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness,
becomes enlivened by devotional service,
becomes enlivened by devotional
and
service,
understands the science of God
and
perfectly.
understands the science of God perfectly.
Vidyate hirdaya grantis,
Vidyate Rudaya Grantis,
chidyante sarva samsaya,
Chiyante Sarva Samsaya,
siyante chasya karmani,
Chiyante Chasakarmani,
trista eva atmanishvare.
Rutai Padmanishwari.
Thus bhakti yoga severs the hard knot of material affection,
Thus the Bhakti Yoga serves the heart of material
and
affection,
enables one to come at once to the stage of a samsayam samagram,
and enables them to come at once to the stage of Asamsham Samagrama,
understanding of the supreme absolute truth personality of Godhead.
understanding the supreme absolute true personality of Godhead.
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotees of Krishna consciousness
can one understand the science of Krishna.
can one understand the science of Krishna.
Shri Guru Vastika prayers. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy. Just as a cloud pours water on the forest fire to extinguish it, so the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world
So the spiritual master delivers the material afflicted
by
world
extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence.
by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence.
I offer my respectful obeisance to such a spiritual master,
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual
who
master.
is an ocean of auspicious qualities.
Son of
Chanting the holy name,
chanting the holy name,
dancing in ecstasy,
dancing in ecstasy,
singing and playing musical instruments.
singing and playing musical
The
instruments.
spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu,
The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu,
because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his heart.
because he's relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his
Sometimes his hair stands on end.
mind. Sometimes badly hairs and stand on
He
end.
feels quivering in his body,
He feels quivering with his
and
body,
tears flow from his eyes like waves.
and tears flow his eyes like
I offer my
waves.
respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual
The
master.
spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna.
The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Sri Radha, and
He also engages his disciples in such worship.
he also engages his disciples in such worship.
They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments,
They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments,
clean their temple,
clean their temple,
and perform other similar worship of the Lord.
and perform other similar worship of the Lord.
I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual
The
master.
spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food,
The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food,
analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked,
analyze that which is licked, chewed, drank, and sucked.
When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasada,
When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasad,
he is satisfied.
he is satisfied.
I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual
I
master.
offer my respectful obeisances, lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 4, verse number 10. Vichikitsitam etan me bhavitu bhagavan yata sabde brahmani nishnata parasmim cha bhavan kalu. Translation by Srila Prabhupada.
Text number 9.
Okay, you have to, that didn't have a, yeah, okay. Yata gunams tu pakriter
Yata gunams tu prakrite
yuga pat kramaso piva
yoga patkrama shopiva
vibharti pururisas tvaika
vibharti purishasastveka
purvan karmani janmabhi.
purvam karmani janmabhi.
Translation: the Supreme Personality of Godhead is one, whether he alone acts with the modes of material nature or simultaneously expands in many forms or expands consecutively to direct the modes of nature. Text 10. Translation: kindly clear up all these doubtful inquiries, because you are not only vastly learned in the Vedic literatures and self-realized in transcendence, but are also a great devotee of the Lord and are therefore as good as the personality of Godhead. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. In the Brahma Samhita it is said that the Supreme Absolute Truth, Govinda, the personality of Godhead, although one without a second, is infallibly expanded by innumerable forms, non-different from one another, and although he is the original person, he is still ever young and permanent youthful energy. With permanent youthful energy, he is very difficult to know simply by learning the transcendental science of the Vedas, but he is very easily realized by his pure devotees. The expansions of different forms of the Lord, as from Krishna to Baladev to Sankarsan, from Sankarsan to Vasudeva, from Vasudeva to Aniruddha, from Aniruddha to Pradyumna, and then again a second Sankarsan, and from him to the Narayana Purushotta avatars, and innumerable other forms, which are compared to the constant flowing of the uncountable waves of a river, are all one and the same. They are like lamps of equal power which kindle from one lamp to another. That is the transcendental potency of the Lord. The Vedas say that he is so complete that even though the whole complete identity emanates from him, he still remains the same complete whole. Purnasya purnam adaya purnam eva vasishyate. As such, there is no validity in a material conception of the Lord produced by the mental speculator. Thus, he remains always a mystery for the mundane scholar, even if he is vastly learned in the Vedic literatures. Vedesa adurlabam atma bhakto. Therefore, the Lord is beyond the limit of conception for the mundane, learned scholars, philosophers, or scientists. He is easily understandable for the pure devotee, because the Lord declares in Bhagavad Gita 1854 that after surpassing the stage of knowledge, when one is able to be engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, then only can one know the true nature of the Lord. One cannot have any clear conception of the Lord or his body, name, form, attributes, pastimes, etc., unless one is engaged in his transcendental loving service. The statement of the Bhagavad Gita that one must first of all surrender unto the Lord, being freed from all other engagements, means that one must become a pure, unconditional devotee of the Lord. Only then can one know him by the strength of devotional service. Maharaj Parikshit admitted in the previous verse that the Lord is inconceivable even for the greatest learned scholars. Why then should he again request Sukadeva Goswami to clarify his insufficient knowledge about the Lord? The reason is clear. Not only was Sukadeva Goswami vastly learned in the Vedic literatures, but he was also a great self-realized soul and a powerful devotee of the Lord. A powerful devotee of the Lord is, by the grace of the Lord, more than the Lord himself. The personality of Godhead, Sri Ramachandra, attempted to bridge the Indian Ocean to reach the island of Lanka, but Sri Hanumanji, the unalloyed devotee of the personality of Godhead, could cross the ocean simply by jumping over it. The Lord is so merciful upon his pure devotee that he presents his beloved devotee as more powerful than himself. The Lord expressed himself to be unable to save Durvasa Muni, although the Muni was so powerful that he could reach the Lord directly under the material conditions. But Durvasa Muni was saved by Maharaj Ambarisha, a devotee of the Lord. Therefore, not only is a devotee of the Lord more powerful than the Lord, but also worship of the devotee is considered more effective than direct worship of the Lord. Mad Bhakta Pujabhyadika. The conclusion is, therefore, that a serious devotee must first approach a spiritual master who not only is well versed in the Vedic literatures, but is also a great devotee with factual realization of the Lord and his different energies. Without the help of such a devotee, spiritual master, one cannot make progress in the transcendental science of the Lord, and a bona fide spiritual master like Sukadeva Goswami does not speak about the Lord only in the matter of his internal potencies, but also explains how he associates with his external potencies. The Lord's pastimes in the internal potency are displayed in his activities in Vrindavana, but his external potential works are directed in his feature of Karanadakshay Vishnu, Karbadakshay Vishnu, and Shirodakshay Vishnu. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti offers his good counsel to the interested Vaishnavas when he says that they should not be interested in hearing only about the Lord's activities like Rasa Lila, but must be keenly interested in his pastimes and his features of the Purushartha-avatars in connection with the Shristi Tattva, creational functions, following the examples of Maharaj Parikshit, the ideal disciple, and Sukadeva Goswami, the ideal spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is one, whether he alone acts with the modes of material nature, or simultaneously expands in many forms, or expands consecutively to direct the modes of nature. Kindly clear up all these doubtful inquiries, because you are not only vastly learned in Vedic literatures and self-realized in transcendence, but are also a great devotee of the Lord, and are therefore as good as the personality of Godhead. So this is another very interesting purport that again is summarizing the unique qualities of Krishna. And we see here that right away there's a mention of the Brahma Samhita, because the Brahma Samhita gives a very concise but thorough explanation of who Krishna is, what is his material energy, who are all the different expansions in the spiritual world and the material world, and how they are conducting their activities. Although Krishna is one, he expands into an infinite number of expansions. There are direct, there are plenary expansions, partial plenary expansions, partial plenary expansions, but they're all part and parcel of the Lord. So it says, in the Brahma Samhita it is said that the Supreme Absolute Truth, Govinda, the personality of Godhead, although one without a second, is infallibly expanded by innumerable forms, non-different from one another, and although he is the original person, he is still ever young with permanent youthful energy. He is very difficult to know simply by learning the transcendental science of the Vedas, but he is very easily realized by his pure devotees. So this is it's sort of a compendium of 3 different verses from the Brahma Samhita. First of all, it says that the Lord is the supreme absolute truth. So it says, Ishwara Parama Krishna. In other words, that Krishna is the supreme Ishwara, or controller of everything. And Satchitananda Vigraha has a transcendental body. And Anadir Adir Govinda, he has no beginning. He is the original person from which everything else emanates. He's also known as Govinda, and he's the cause of all causes. So therefore, it says that the Supreme Absolute Truth, Govinda, the personality of Godhead, although one without a second, is infallibly expanded by innumerable forms non-different from one another. So innumerable forms, we have the verse Ramadi, actually there's 4 verses that explain this. Ramadi Murti Sukala Niyamena Tistan Nanavataram Akarod Bhuvane Sukintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pumanyo Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. So this verse says that he expands himself as different avatars in the world, so Rama, Nishinga, Vamana, etc., and his subjective portions. And also in the Advaitam, Achyutam, Anadim, Anantarupam. So it says Anantarupam. He has unlimited forms. And Adyam Purana Purusham, Navayovanam Cha. And he never gets old. So it's infallibly, meaning perfectly expanded by innumerable forms, non-different from one another. And although he's the original person, he's Anadi, he has no beginning, he is eternal, still he's ever young with permanent youthful energy, Navayovanam Cha. So that's Advaitam, Achyutam, Anadim, Anantarupam, Adyam Purana Purusham, Navayovanam Cha, Vedesa Durlabam, Adurlabam Atma Bhakto, Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So he's still ever young, Navayovanam Cha, with permanent youthful energy. He is difficult to know simply by learning the transcendental science of the Vedas, but he is very easily realized by his pure devotees. So the Vedas are within the limitation of what you would call sound vibration. So sound vibration is a material thing. So you can understand some things about Krishna by reading the Vedas, but you will not get a completely clear understanding of him unless you actually engage, or we actually engage in devotional service to the Lord, which is transcendental. The Vedas are not completely transcendental because they're within the realm of sound vibration, and sound is part of the material world. So, therefore, one must be engaged in devotional service to understand the real meaning of the Vedas. So this is a mysterious thing. That's why Krishna says, Tesam Satya Yuktanam Bhajatam Priti Purvakam. Those who are engaged in my devotional service, unflinchingly, always thinking of me, and always engaged in glorifying me, to those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So this is what is not understood by the mundane scholars. And philosophers and teachers and scientists. Therefore, they can never understand Krishna. All they do is speculate. They're not even close to understanding Krishna. So therefore, we should never have any faith in these type of materialistic people. So that includes a whole host of Vedic scholars who are experts in reciting the Vedas and so forth, but they're not actually devotees. So how do we know that? Well, you have people like Durvasa Muni, you have people like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and other people like that who are experts in Vedic knowledge. But until they met a pure devotee, they were not actually devotees themselves. So you have Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was expert in the Vedas, but he couldn't recognize who Lord Chaitanya was. But when Lord Chaitanya spoke to him, he realized that there's no one comparable to Lord Chaitanya, and therefore he must be the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he surrendered completely to him. And Durvasa Muni, he thought he was more powerful than a mere king, because he had perfected the yoga siddhis, but he found out that the king is most exalted and under the direct protection of Krishna. And Krishna arranges that his devotee perform activities that he himself cannot do. That doesn't mean he can't do it, but in order to glorify his devotees, he lets them act in ways that seem to be beyond his own means. Like, for example, Lord Ramachandra, he needed to build a bridge to go from the Rameshwara to Lanka. But Hanuman jumped across the 20 or some miles of difference distance. So he gave Hanuman the strength to do something that he didn't do himself. That doesn't mean he can't do it, but he does this purposely for his pure devotees to be glorified. So becoming a pure devotee is actually the whole point of reading Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam. Because one cannot enter into the subtleties and mystical reality of the spiritual world without becoming a devotee. So therefore, the mundane scholars, they can speculate all they want. They don't even come close to understanding who Krishna is. But in this one purport today, we get a panoramic view of Krishna's incredible energies and powers. And then we can begin to understand how he is achintya, is inconceivable to us. Because we're limited by what's called the time-space module. So this is also explained in Srimad Bhagavatam 11th Canto, 19th chapter, verses 20 to 24. And especially one particular line which says, Mad Bhakta Pujabhyadika. Prabhupada says the words Mad Bhakta Pujabhyadika are significant in this verse. That would be 11th Canto, 19th chapter, verse 21. Abhyadika indicates superior quality. The Lord is extremely satisfied with those who offer worship to his pure devotees, and he rewards them accordingly. Because of the Lord's generous appraisal of his pure devotees, worship of the pure devotees is described as superior to worship of the Lord himself. The words Mad Arte Svananga Chesta, this is another phrase, in a series of verses 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. This phrase states that ordinary bodily activities such as brushing the teeth, taking bath, eating, etc. should all be offered to the Supreme Lord as devotional service. The words Vachasa Mad Guner Anam, this is another phrase in this series of verses from the 11th canto, 19th chapter, verses 20 to 24. Indicates that whether one speaks in ordinary crude language or with learned poetic eloquence, one should describe the glories of the personality of Godhead. The words Mad Arte Rita Parityaga indicate that one should spend one's money for festivals glorifying the personality of Godhead. We're having a festival every Sunday, and we're having so many festivals in the temple. We have a festival at the farm every Sunday. Indicate that one should spend one's money for festivals glorifying the personality of Godhead, such as Rathayatra, Janmashtami, and Gaura Purnima. Also, one is herein instructed to spend money to assist the mission of one's spiritual master and other Vaishnavas. Wealth that cannot be used properly in the Lord's service and is thus an impediment to one's clear consciousness should be given up. The words Bogasya refers to sense gratification headed by sex enjoyment, and Sukhasya refers to sentimental material happiness, such as excessive family attachment. The words Tatam Hutam indicate that one should offer to Brahmanas and Vaishnavas first-class foods cooked in ghee. One should offer the vibration Swaha to Lord Vishnu in an authorized sacrificial fire, along with grains and ghee. The words Japtam indicates that one should constantly chant the holy names of the Lord. So, this is very interesting. These are all things that we should do and are hallmarks of, or qualities of, pure devotees. Okay, so therefore, kindly clear up all these doubtful inquiries, because you are not only vastly learned in the Vedic literatures and self-realized in transcendence, but are also a great devotee to the Lord and are therefore as good as the personality of Godhead. So this is what differentiates a mundane scholar or scientist or philosopher from a devotee. They are not devotees of the Lord. They don't have any feelings, intimate feelings for the Lord. They're not engaged in devotional service. They're engaged in serving their own lust, anger, greed. So, therefore, we have to look at the motivation of people before we accept them as, let's say, a teacher. If their motivation is simply to make money and maintain their family or maintain themselves, then they're not really qualified to be a teacher, because they're going to teach you the same thing, even if they don't say it explicitly, just by their body language and the way they speak and what they're teaching. It's very clear that they're teaching attachment to the material world. They're not teaching attachment to Krishna. It's not in their culture. Their culture is based on the idea that everything started by an accident and it's going on automatically. There's no God. Basically, this is what the Buddhists say too. They say you don't have to talk about God because the material nature is eternal. Therefore, it doesn't matter that there was a God or wasn't a God. It's not a question of inquiry. But Vaishnavas say that you must inquire about God, and not only about his activities in the material world, but his internal activities. In other words, both are important. What he does in the internal energy of the spiritual world and what he does in the external energy. The Sahajiyas, they jump right away to, they only want to hear about the internal energy. They don't want to worship Krishna as part of the Sarati. They want to worship Krishna as the Lord of the Rasa Leela. So you see, even people who are knowledgeable of the Vedas, who know things about Krishna, they can also be nonsense, because they divide Krishna from his activities in the material world and his activities in the spiritual world. But it's the same Krishna in both places, and both energies belong to him. Therefore, they're all significant and important to know. That's why it says here that the statement of the Bhagavad Gita must first of all, the statement of the Bhagavad Gita that one must first of all surrender unto the Lord, being freed from all other engagements, means that one must become a pure, unconditional devotee of the Lord. Only then can one know the Lord by the strength of devotional service. So we can study things all we want, but unless we're actually engaged practically in devotional service, we won't understand. You can mouth words, you can mimic words, but the understanding is not there, because the understanding is manifested by the devotion and love for the Lord, and pure intentions, and the ability and the readiness to sacrifice everything for the service of the Lord. So this is a rare thing. Not everyone comes to it, that stage of pure devotional service. But the potential to attain it is there for everyone. In other words, it's not based on academics. It's based on devotion. That's what's hard for people to understand, because the whole educational system in the material world is academic. And therefore there are inequalities. There's no nowadays there's a big thing about equity. Just like now, United Way just donated $1.5 million to 15 black nonprofits, and their statement, their purpose is, and this is in Seattle, right? United Way is all over the United States, but this is only in Seattle. And their purpose is what? To bring black people to equality with white people. Now, there's no such thing as equality in the material world. If someone is born blind, how can they be equal to other people who have eyes and can see? If someone is born with a physical defect, how can they be equal to others who don't have physical defects? If someone who is born in a poor family, how can they be equal to someone who's born in a wealthy family? Well, you might say, through education, through training, this thing, that thing. But there's inequality everywhere in the material world. Just like there are species who have no legs, and there are species that have legs. Well, the species that have legs are superior to the species that have no legs. So how can you say that there's equality? On the other hand, someone who engages in devotional service, they can transcend all these limitations. And there's one example. It's what was her name? Claire Buck. Anyway, she was a person that was born blind and deaf. But she became an author and a famous person. She overcame her limitation of senses. She was blind and deaf, but yet she became an author. So you see, there's inequality definitely, but she was not. She was an author and like a spiritualist. She believed in God, and she wrote books about God. Can you look her up? Let's see. Huh? What? Helen Keller. Her name's Helen Keller. Thank you. You have it? Yeah, read a little bit about it. What's it say? What's it say? All right, come up here. Come up here. Let's hear what you say.
Hare Krishna. Helen Adams Keller was an American author, disability rights advocate.
Take the mask off. I can't understand what
Sorry.
you're saying.
She was an American author, disability rights advocate, political activist, and lecturer. Born in West Tuscumbia, Alabama. She lost her sight and hearing after a B-O-U-T, bout of illness at the age of 19 months. She then communicated primarily using home signs.
Home science?
Yeah, home signs. Sign.
Home signs or science?
Sign. S-I-G-N-S.
Yes.
Sign. Until the age of
she's
7.
blind and deaf, right?
She lost her sight and hearing. About a bout of illness, B-O-U-T, bout of illness, at the age of 19 months. She then communicated primarily using the home signs until the age of 7, when she met her first teacher and lifelong companion, Annie, who taught her language, including reading and writing.
Imagine she can't hear and she can't see, and she learns reading and writing.
Sullivan's first lessons involved spelling words on Keller's hand to show her the names of objects around her. She also learned about to speak and to understand other people's speech using the Tedoma method.
Okay, anyway, we can't understand what you're saying, but anyway, it's okay.
Sorry.
So you get the idea. Here's a lady who's born, well, she becomes deaf and blind, but yet she learns how to write and she becomes an author, right? So she's an amazing lady, but she was very spiritual. It doesn't say she was spiritual, but she was talking a lot about God. So anyway, we see that there's inequality in the material world. But someone who becomes a devotee can rise above all those inequalities. But you don't do it artificially by, like, the United Way wants to give $1.5 million this year to 15 different black, nonprofits to develop equity. So black people come up to the same level as white people. That's crazy. That's not going to make a major difference. They've already spent billions of dollars on the black community in the United States, and instead of helping them, it's helped some. But instead of helping them, they've deteriorated. Right? The black family has deteriorated in the United States, and so that's why they're still talking about they have to become equal. Let's do this. Let's do that. Why don't let's chant Hare Krishna and learn how to become engaged in devotional service? Then there's real equity. Because Krishna, like, he even accepts Hanuman. Hanuman's not even human, right? But he's a devotee. So that's where equity, that's how equity is attained. So, therefore, what's really important is, Prabhupada says, the conclusion is therefore that a serious devotee must first approach a spiritual master who not only is well versed in the Vedic literatures, but is also a great devotee with factual realization of the Lord and his different energies. Without help of such a devotee, spiritual master, one cannot make progress in the transcendental science of the Lord. And a bona fide spiritual master like Sukadeva Goswami does not speak about the Lord only in the matter of his internal potencies, but also explains how he associates with his external potencies. Because if we learn how Krishna associates with his external potencies, we'll know how to deal with the external potency. Right? So, first of all, Maya is always accompanying Krishna. She's subordinate to Krishna. She's surrendered to Krishna. But she's always there. And as soon as we turn away from Krishna, immediately Maya catches us. Therefore, we must have the strength of mind not to deviate from Krishna consciousness. We should always be engaged in some kind of devotional service for the Lord. That should be our life and our preoccupation. Okay, so then the other point is that in this Brahma Samhita verse 5.33, it says, I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is inaccessible to the Vedas. See, that's the point. Inaccessible. That means you cannot reach Krishna simply by the Vedas. You might understand some things about Krishna, but you will not achieve him or come to become a pure devotee simply by the Vedas, but obtainable by pure unalloyed devotion of the soul. That's the point. Who is without a second, now it's talking about Krishna, who is not subject to decay, is without a beginning, whose form is endless, who is the beginning and the eternal Purusha person. Yet he is a person possessing the beauty of blooming youth. These are what you call mutually contradictory qualities. So how can you understand the mundane, let's say, speculators? They always say, oh, this is not logical. Because they can't handle mutually contradictory qualities of the Lord. He's far away and very near at the same time. He's one, but he expands infinitely. How can they deal with that? This is nonsense for them. It's not logical. It's not logical. But yet, it's factual. Therefore, they have no entry into transcendence. So, it says, Brahman, the infinite, emanates from him, as his effulgence, and God immanent, Paramatma, as his constituent. How can I understand that? That the entire Brahman energy on which the whole spiritual and material world are situated is emanating from Krishna's body. They can't see a person being so powerful. It's not in their pay scale, let's put it like that. It's not possible because they can't do it. They're not going to admit that there's someone else that can do it. That's out of envy. Achyuta means that though myriads of avatars emanate from him as subjective portions and millions of jivas as separated spiritual particles, still he remains intact as the undivided whole of fullest perfection. So achyuta means basically inconceivable, right? So therefore, now it's referring to the introductory mantra of the Ishopanishad. Om Purnam Ada Purnam Idam Purnat Purnam Adachate Purnasya Purnam Adaya Purnam Eva Vasisyate. Though he indulges in exhibiting the pastimes of births, etc., still he is without a beginning. So this is what is confusing. He takes birth seemingly like an ordinary human being, But there's nothing ordinary about him at all. And then they say, well, this is just mythology. This is not mythology, it's fact. But they can't handle it because they would have to admit that they're subordinate to the Lord, and they will not do that. That's the mundane speculators. Though he disappears after the pastimes of his appearance, still he is eternal. So the Moshala Lila, the idea that Krishna was killed by a hunter who shot him in his foot, and he left his body. That's all illusory. It's like a magician who's cut in half on the stage. You see it, but he's not cut in half. It's an illusion. So the magicians are called illusionists. They create an illusion, right? But Krishna is the supreme illusionist. So unless we hear who Krishna is from a bona fide devotee of the Lord or bona fide devotees of the Lord, we will not be able to handle all this mutually contradictory qualities of the Lord. Because we will Atmavan Manyate Jagat, we will project our own limitations on the Lord. And therefore we'll say, well, because I can't do it, he can't do it. And it says, the sum and substance of it is that though he possesses diverse and apparently mutually contradictory qualities, still they are in universal harmonious concordance by dint of his unthinkable potency. So this is the whole point. Unless we accept Krishna has unlimited potencies, we remain an atheist. We cannot accept that he can do all these things. This is what is meant by Chid Dharma, transcendental nature, as distinguished from the material nature. His graceful threefold bending form with flute in hand possesses eternal blooming youth and is above all unwholesomeness that is to be found in limited time and space. In the transcendental realm, there is no past and future, but only the unalloyed and immutable, meaning unchangeable, present time. In the transcendental sphere, there is no distinction between the object and its qualities, and no such identity as is found in the limited mundane region. Hence, those qualities that seem to be apparently contradictory in the light of mundane conception, limited by time and space, exist in agreeable and dainty concordance in the spiritual realm. How can the jiva realize such unprecedented existence? The limited intellectual function of the jiva is always contaminated by the influence of time and space, and is therefore not in a position to shake off this limitedness. If the potency of cognitive function does not extend to the realization of the transcendental, what else can? In reply, Brahma says that the transcendental absolute is beyond the reach of the Vedas. The Vedas originate in sound, and sound originates in the mundane ether. So the Vedas cannot present before us a direct view of the transcendental world, Goloka. It is only when the Vedas are imbued with the chit potency that they are enabled to deal with the transcendental. But Goloka reveals itself to every jiva soul when he is under the influence of the spiritual cognitive potency joined to the essence of ecstatic energy. So, in other words, when you're engaged in devotional service with love and devotion for the Lord. The ecstatic function of devotion is boundless and is surcharged with unalloyed transcendental knowledge. That knowledge reveals Goloka Tattva, the principle of the highest transcendental, in unison with devotion, without asserting itself separately, but as a subsidiary to unalloyed devotion. So knowledge is a subsidiary to unalloyed devotion. Knowledge devoid of devotion is zero. Knowledge as a subsidiary of unalloyed devotion actually has validity. Jai. So this is the Brahma Samhita, verse 33. Very important verse. Very important verse. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any questions? Yeah. Well, it's not logical to the mundane people because they can't do it. They're not going to admit that there's someone else that can do such things. That's based on this inherent envy. Right. So when a person is envious of another person, they won't admit the qualities of that other person, or they'll find some excuse to belittle it. So we're all in this world because we became envious of Krishna. And the only way we can overcome that envious is by associating with a genuine devotee and devotees. Otherwise, what brought us into the material world will keep us here, unless that corrupt thought process is purified. Haribol. All glories to Prabhupada.